Abibi Fahodie, Black family, race first, Hotep. Welcome back to another episode here at the School of Urban Philosophy, where we are always straight up, straightforward, and straight to the point. We're going to have another explosive session. As always, I enjoy our sessions. I believe that the sessions are very vibrant and informative and very instructive. So as always, I'm encouraging everyone, if you have not already subscribed to the channel, please subscribe to the channel. Share and like the video. So we can get this content out as we engage in self-exploration, self-development, character development, spiritual development, all those necessary things that enables us to be better Black men and Black women. So as you're coming on tonight, if you are able to just say something in the chat, please do, because I would like to always remind us that as African people, part of what we do is call and response. It's the energy. We are energy people, we are vibrant people, and we are rhythm people. And whatever spaces we find ourselves in, we should generate energy, create the call and response. So as I am communicating, conversing from my side, sharing, what the ancestors have bestowed upon me with you, then let me know you're there. Send up a Abibi Fahodie, a race first, a Hotep. What's up? What's going on? Whatever you need to say, however you need to say it, do that. Send it out there. I see we got brother Obafemi. Abibi Fahodie, my brother. Brother Jabali. Abibi Fahodie, my brother. Race first. It's always is a pleasure. It's an honor to be able to come before Black people and engage in liberating dialogue that is designed to foster and open up the best within us. So before I delve in, I want to ask a question. And the question that I want to ask us, those who are here, and hopefully those who may sign on later. But my question is this. Why is history, primarily our history, why is it important for us to understand it and know it? Why is that important? And my reason for asking that question is because that is the question that most people are asking who are unaware. Those who are trying to come into the knowledge, that are trying to deal with this, the situation or the Black dilemma, like I like to call it, the Black dilemma, they're always wrestling with that question. Like, why is history important? And so I want to know tonight, I want you guys to tell me what you think. Why is it important for Black people, African people, to know their history? Why is that important? Correctional Officer for Lockdown Hotel, my brother. Good to see you back. Appreciate it. Not sure if you heard the question, so I will repeat the question that I'm asking the chat. And my question is, why is it important for Black people, African people, to know their history and culture? And my reason for that question is because most of the individuals that we are attempting to reach, to bring into this type of knowledge and information, most of them are asking that question themselves, because I talk to a lot of those people. They want to know the importance. They want to know, why is that important? How does it impact me paying my bills? So we have one answer. My sister Zinzi says, if we do not understand our history, allow other people to distort our views, traditions, and culture. Great answer. Great answer. Anyone else? Why is it important? Like, let's dig into that. What is the importance about it? There's a Yoruba proverb that states, a child that forgets his or her ancestry has placed himself in a position of suffering. History gives a context of who and what you have been, who and what you are now, and who and what we must be and do in the future. Excellent answer. I like it. Like all the answers. Brother Bobby Hotep, African history is the mental lifeblood of wisdom. A lot of answers. Yes, beautiful answers. Beautiful answers. And I wanted to start there. I wanted to start there because we have to build with that. Like, we have to be very clear about the concepts and the phrases and the terminologies that we are using in this quest to push our people forward. Like, when we talk about African sovereignty and African liberation, the upliftment of African people, we have to be clear because there is a body of our people, genuine in their heart, but confused as to why they should learn certain pieces of information. They're genuine in their heart, they mean well, but yet they're confused as to the reasoning behind why the emphasis on history and culture. I appreciate your answers. All your answers were great answers. Let me add to your answers. I like to put it this way. History is a part of our memory. It's a part of your memory. And memory orientates you. It's like a person is in a car accident. They get amnesia, they disoriented because without that memory, you can't place yourself. That's a disorientation. And whenever there's a disorientation, there's confusion. So history is a part of your memory. And that's why it's so important. It's important at the psychological level. It's at the psychological level that history becomes something important. Yes, it does all those things that you laid out. It allows us to know who we are, where we was at, which is true. But more importantly, I want us to understand it from the position that history is an essential part of memory. And memory is crucial to self-orientation. When one is disorientated due to a lack of memory, one is confused. There's a confusion. When you wake up in the hospital after having a car accident and you look around and you don't even know where you're at, you don't recognize the people that you see, but these people are telling you they know you. I'm your wife, I'm your son, I'm your mother, but you can't recognize anyone. You are in a state of disorientation and you're confused and you are defensive. And the reason you're defensive, because you want to protect yourself because you don't know who these people are. That's us. That's why it's so important to know our history, because when we don't know our history, we misassociate some of us who are good, we misassociate us with being bad because we are disorientated. We are confused. So because we are confused, we stay in a hyper state of defensiveness. But the clearer you are about your history, the more informed you are about who is your people and who are not your people. The clearer you are about your history, the more informed you are about who are your people and who are not your people. And you know history allows you to know that every misstep by someone Black isn't necessarily an intentional attack against you. Some things we just genuinely make a mistake because we're still learning and growing and developing. But when you don't have the context of history, everybody falls on the opposite side because you're in a hyper state of defensiveness and a need to protect yourself. It's very important that we ground ourselves in a solid and authentic history of what it means to be African and Black. The confusion of a people is best demonstrated by embracing mental ways and practices such as saying, "What's up?" Grown men saying, "I'm going to the crib." Yeah, I understand and I get that. I think in some instances, those statements, I understand the point that you're making, but I think in some instances, those statements, also facilitates, because I say what's up. I don't speak to people who I know don't use what's up. But if I'm out there on that corner and I deal with the streets a lot, they don't say hotel. They don't say peace. They don't say BB for ODA. They don't say race first. So I use the language in that environment that's going to facilitate a conversation to get to some understanding. So I think it's situational with those types of terms. Now, the one about a crib, I think that's just, that's a layer of terminology that's coming out of, the 50s, the 60s, and the 70s for the most part. But I understand your sentiments, and I do agree, essentially, in a general sense with the sentiments. But yes, man. So I want us to think about that, and I want us to think about, how to teach history. What's the best way to teach history? Oftentimes when I listen to people talk about teaching history, appreciate that, my brother. Appreciate that. Great. Yeah. Oftentimes when teaching history, we want to utilize methodologies. We want to utilize information that's going to allow us to get to understanding. We don't want to use complex information. So, and I tell people this all the time because people always refer a newbie to the destruction of Black civilization. And I argue that a new person to this thing, you shouldn't give them the destruction of Black civilization, because that's not a elementary level book. That's not an entry book. So you shouldn't give the person that, because the reason why we engage people, we got to engage people with the intent of being effective. Everything we do, we have to be effective. So we have to master the craft. We have to master the craft. We have to understand what is the best way to introduce and bring about the type of development that our people need in those areas. So if you're going to teach history or introduce a person to history, you must assess where that person is already at. If that person is extremely new to this thing, but they genuinely want to learn, you don't get them the destruction of Black civilization. That's not my recommendation. Put it that way. I'm not going to tell you what not to do. I'm saying that is not my recommendation for someone that's new to this, because they're going to get lost in that book. They're going to get lost a lot of ways. They may complete the book. They're going to walk away having really learned not anything, because it's going to confuse them on a lot of levels. But there are some books that you can introduce them to that'll prepare them for a destruction of Black civilization. And that's the methodology of how you bring about development. Development doesn't happen like this. Consciousness develop in degrees, and because of developing degrees, there has to be degrees and stages that you move a person through to facilitate the best in the more structured development of his or her consciousness. You want that to develop in a very structured way. So you have to have a methodology. You have to have some stages and some steps that you're moving a person through, some terminology, some vocabulary words that you can introduce the person to help them get along so they can, grasp what they need to grasp. My brother says here, Black martial artists have never been embraced by so-called mainstream society because the soul force of a Black people is with a much different rhythm, walk, talk, way of life. Yes, I agree. We are rhythm people. And the soul force, I'm glad you used the term soul force. Many people don't use that term. But the fact that you use soul force, it says a whole lot. I appreciate that, because that's what got us through. That's what, we have survived on soul force. That's what we are. You know what I'm saying? Rhythm, dynamism, vibrancy. You know what I'm saying? That's us. You know what I'm saying? Improvising. That's who we are. Like we are this. We are a manifestation of Black energy. We are a manifestation of Black energy. Inhabiting this body, you know what I'm saying? So we are reincarnating, but not reincarnation in the Indian sense. I'm not saying that. I'm using it in the context of saying we are reincarnating, meaning we are taking back on human form because as energy beings, right, we were always here. As energy beings, we were always here, and we move through these cycles. So we reincarnate. You know what I'm saying? Not that Indian stuff they're talking about. You know what I'm saying? You come back as a bee, a bird, and a snake. Now, I'm not talking about none of that. So let me be very clear what I mean. But to the point, you know, we are the manifestation of Black energy. That's spirit for us. We are spirit. We are spirited beings. And because we are spirited beings, part of our task is to tap into the core of our being and bring our spirit out into this environment so we can engage in what I like to call spirit living. Because for us to be spirit is to be righteous, is to be divine. They're one and the same. And lastly, to be spirit is to be righteous, is to be divine, is to be human. And by human, I don't mean every walking, talking, blinking being that's walking on the earth. You know what I'm saying? By my standards, to be human is to be an African. To be an upright, righteous African is what it means to be a human being, which is a spirited being that understands that he or she is a spirited being that's acting very righteously. Since you are my Jagna, I know books that you recommend, but for people that may be new to tuning in or coming into consciousness, what are your recommendations, Bob? Great question. Put me on the spot. Put me on the spot. So, I think if they're new to it, they're new to it. And like I say, if the person have made the assessment of the individual, and he's new to coming into the knowledge. The first book that I would probably recommend for them is a book that's by John Henry Clark. It's a little teeny blue book. And I believe the book is called The World, Africa and the World. Dr. John Henry Clark. Very simple book, easy book, profound with all the information, easy to read. It's not a lot of pages, you know, but every page in the book is providing you with some information. So I would suggest that a person, you know, read that book first. Read that book first. Then there's another book, another little teeny small book that would follow that book. It's called, I believe it's The African Tribute to Civilization, you know, but I can pull it out to make sure I gave you the correct title to that book. It's another small book. It's about 80 pages, and it goes through African history in stages. So it talk about African military. Give you a little bit of it show you how we have shown up in these different disciplines that people think that we were not a part of. So I go through that book. And then having read those two books there, which are books that are very easy to read. All right, and that's what I want you to read. I want the person to read books that are easy to read, to get the history and the culture, you know. So now you got to look. So those two books there give you a little bit of information about who we are, where we come from. And if you sincere in your heart, those two books should inspire you to want to learn a little bit more about who we are. All right. So the next easy book that I think is easy that I would suggest that a person would read in terms of just getting information to the person, something that's very easy to read, would be another. I would bring them back to Dr. John Henry Clark, and that's Christopher Columbus and the African Holocaust. I will bring them back there. Now, having read those three books, and we discussed those three books, and if I'm working with the person, I had the person write on those books, talk and see what they actually are grasping, what they're we still moving along in the lines of history. Then I will move them into John G. Jackson's book, Introduction to African Civilization. It's a bigger book, but it's an easy book to read. And having read these three books that I just mentioned, a person will be familiar with a lot of the information that's in the book. It's a little bit more in depth, but you'll be able to get through that book. So you read the Introduction to African Civilization, Dr. John G. Jackson. Then from Dr. John G. Jackson, then we can dip into the destruction of Black civilization and go around inside the destruction of Black civilization. And then from the destruction of Black civilization, we can go into Dr. Chika and the Jop, African Origin of Civilization, Myth of Reality. And having read all those books right there, you read those books, those 6 books right there, and you read, we discuss, you write, you take your notes, then the person coming from there should have a general idea of who we are, where we've come from, how we have behaved, what we think, what we thought, and then from there, they can go anywhere structurally, because it's not okay to just pick books up and read books. And a lot of people do that. They just read to read. So they got a bunch of bits and pieces of information, which is generally no good. You don't want a bunch of pieces of information. You want a solid foundation. So you want to strategically and systematically build your foundation by being selective about what you read, and you move from there. And then before you know it, 10 years go by, and then you can legitimately say that I'm an authority, on our history, because you've done it for 10 years and you've done it systematically the correct way. There's no way that some white boy in any one of them universities can tell you about your history, regardless. So you don't even need what they define as being a PhD. You would have more than a PhD, if you move through this process in a very rigorous way, making sure the content all lines up and don't be out here just trying to chase information. Like a lot of people, we think it's about information. So we just reading anything. We grab this book, we grab that book, we read that book, we read that book, and you're not building anything. Your foundation is weak. People throw a little bit of water on your foundation, you start sinking in. It's not solid. You need a solid foundation. So I'll stop there in terms of those recommendations, but that's what I would suggest for someone that's very new to the process. I got different books for those who are not very new, and I move them a different way. Brother Zaquani A52, where you been at, brother? Where you been at, brother? I need to see you on here every Thursday, man. You need to be in session with us. But I'm glad you're here tonight. Naim Akbar, any of his books. So yes, Dr. Naim Akbar, he have written some pretty interesting books, and yes, you can use his books. But once again, like I say, I'm building on foundation. Dr. Naim Akbar books are psychological books. And currently, we wasn't dealing with psychological books. We was asking about a person entry into their history. So that's why it's very important. So for me, if I use Naim Akbar's books, I would use them when I'm bringing a person into some type of African psychology, that I would use in that particular spectrum, that particular that way, but that wasn't what we was talking about just now. But he do have some interesting books that are useful to get a person thinking and open a person up. So yes. Cruz's Crisis of the Negro Intellectual, E. Franklin Frazier, Black Bourgeoisie, John Hope Franklin, From Slavery to Freedom, Nearly Fellas Go. Yeah, they good books, but I wouldn't get those books to nobody that was just first started reading them. Nah, they too complicated, Most definitely the Black Bourgeoisie, it's a complicated book. Cruz's Crisis of the Negro Intellectual, if you don't know anything about who we are, yeah, you're going to struggle with his book, because he goes through dealing with a whole bunch of a lot of people. Great books, though. John Hope Franklin's Freedom from Freedom to Slavery, it's a great book, yes. Nearly Fuller's The Code, that's a highly complicated book, you know what I'm saying? Nearly Fuller's book is a highly complicated book, but they are great books. They are great books, So what I say, that's what I say. See, my methodology of working with people, and I've been working with people since 1994. I've always, in my mind, I've always developed a methodology and a process to move people through, rather than just getting all the books that may be great books and giving it to them, right? Because everybody's comprehension can't grasp. You know what I'm saying? You can't even begin to deal with what Nearly Fuller is talking about if you haven't read anything about history and understand anything about Europeans. You can't begin to grasp what Nearly Fuller is talking about if you are, a neophyte in that regard. But they are great books, though. Yes, great quote from Marcus Garvey, the Honorable Marcus Garvey. Yes. Yes, my brother. It's quality rather than quantity. That's what it's about. That's what it's about. And that's the way. And I realized that, kind of early on when I started working with people, I realized some people are better grounded than other people. And I realize that some are better grounded because they take their time to read for the purpose of development rather than reading for the purpose of acquisition. They are not the same. They're not the same. See, some of us read to acquire information so we can regurgitate it to sound intelligent. So we're reading for the wrong reasons. So it's not taking root the correct way. Some of us are trying to develop to become a better human being. And because we're trying to become a better human being, the information and the knowledge is taking root because we're being what? Intentional about what we read. And you have to be intentional. I don't read every book. You know, I've never been that way. I don't read everything. And there are tons of people who have read way more books than me. But they are not as effective as me. And that's what matters. They've outread me, yes, you know what I'm saying? And I don't really mind you outread me. And people ask me all the time, Baba, have you ever read this book before? No, I never read that book before. Is it a great book? Yeah. Are you learning something from it? You know, or you just want to ask me, have I read the book before because you want to find a book that you want to show me up on? It's a lot of books you can find that I have not read, and I may not ever read those books. You know what I'm saying? But my effectiveness always attests to who and what I am. Let me plug this computer before it down on me again real quick. I don't want to lose you guys. How we doing? We back? I'm a little delayed. What about urban philosophy, thought and behavior system, and Afrocentricity? Just once again, though they are excellent books, but once again, the question was more so about attempting to bring someone into the knowledge that they never read anything about our history. You know, Afrocentricity isn't necessarily classified as a history book, and urban philosophy isn't classified as a history book either. Right? They are thought-provoking books. Those are books that make us aware of who we are and how we thought and how we are to be. They're good for that. So yes, I would always recommend those books. I would never not recommend those books, but once again, within the process. So if I'm dealing with somebody who are absolutely new and they are trying to find out more about our history in the context of historical information, I will move in that particular way that I laid out. But as we get deeper in and they begin to understand, and then we can delve into these other works because now we're able to take and start working directly on their mind in terms of their thinking, because the thinking is what impacts the behavior. So we can begin to do that. So the whole process is a building process. It's the same way as if a person walked up on a dilapidated building and you saw this building and you said, wow, man, I'm going to purchase that building and I'm going to transform that building into a facility, right? You can't start building that facility from the top up. You got to go in there and gut that whole building out. You got to gut it out. That's the first thing. You got to go in there and gut it out. And first, you got to make sure it's sound that it don't collapse on you. So you go in there and then you gut it out and then you start working from there. And so that's more so what I'm laying out. I'm laying out a process of development rather than just talking about books, right? There are tons of books, you know what I'm saying? I know that people can read and learn from, but we got to think about those who are new to it. You know what I'm saying? Who are new to it. Dr. Amos Wilson, if anybody ever listened to Dr. Amos Wilson or read Dr. Amos Wilson, because most of his books are nothing but his speeches, Dr. Amos Wilson is one of the most profound Black men that stood on the planet Earth. Right? You know, none of his books are easy. So no, I would not give a new person Dr. Amos Wilson books. I would not. That's a misuse. That's not being a good educator. That's like me taking third graders who don't even know multiplication. And I say, you know what? I'm going to teach y'all algebra. They don't even know multiplication, but I'm going to start teaching them or proceeding to teach algebra to them. Right? No, it's like everything got to be in a process. Amos Wilson is complex. You know, Black on Black violence is a complex book. It's a complex book. You know what I'm saying? The Falsification of African Consciousness. It's a complex book. The Blueprint for Black Power. You have scholars that have not completed that book. Scholars. Right? So no, I wouldn't give nobody that's new to this a Dr. Amos Wilson book. No, I will get them there, but I'm not going to start out giving it to them so I can discourage them. You know, no, the objective is to build people, to help people grasp the information, to grasp the knowledge so they can begin to like it, so they can feel themselves growing, not to give them things, you know, that's going to always knock them down because they're not getting it. You know, no, you never do that. It's like even when you're doing, when you try to move people from oppression to liberation, you got to move them in stages because they got to get some wins under their belt to build their morale. If we take them up against, you know what I'm saying, the hard paths up front, and they get knocked down every time, it's going to kill morale. And at some point, they're going to stop moving forward. They're going to stop because the way the brain and the mind works, it's automatically logical. But by logical, I don't mean it's always going to reason correctly. I'm just saying it's just going to reason a certain way. So if every attempt I get knocked down, my brain begin to reason that this right here isn't going to get it. So then at some point, as we try to move people forward, they no longer want to move with you because they have not seen any form of victory, any form of success moving this way. And that's the same thing with teaching people or educating people. You have to put people in a position to actually learn so they can enjoy it. Because if it's not enjoyable, they're going to retreat. They're going to retreat away from it. So we have to be an educator is to be a psychologist. I don't like to use the term, but I'm using it for the purposes of conversation. To be an educator is to be a spirit-driven and a spirit-led individual because you must be able to connect with the spirit of the recipient. So the educator and the recipient must be able to create a process, a dynamism between them, where the recipient can feel resistance in the process, but at the same time feels relief when he or she is getting it and getting over hurdles, right? So you create that type of dynamic, because once that dynamic is created, you can take people anywhere. They no longer would need you at a certain point because they know how to go. But if they're honorable people, they will always be able to be indebted to you for doing for them what you've done for them. That's what this is about. Let's say point well taken. Thank you, my brother. Appreciate that. Yes. Hold up, my brother. How you doing? I see you tuning in. It's always a pleasure. Dr. Sauce, Dr. Amos Wilson is that, no doubt. Yes, he is, right? Yes. I have been much more astute with books that were destroyed due to my basement flooding. I can't explain it, but I believe I am a stronger reader. I wonder why. Now, that's great. Some of us are stronger readers. You know, we are stronger readers. Some of us, like, we all have inclinations and we are prone to that. You know, could have been deep in your upbringing, how you came up. Could have been things that you've observed. It could have been processes that you've been put through at a younger age that prepared you for that, right? So now it comes kind of easy to you. A lot of our people that we are reaching to, they haven't been through processes. They haven't had the chance to go through rigorous processes. So they're not developed for that. So we have to take that in consideration. So oftentimes, that's why I say I always attempt to do an assessment. And my assessment is a dialogue. Because I understand that I can dialogue with you for about 15 to 20 minutes, and I can understand exactly where you are at to a degree. And from there, I can move with you and work with you. A lot of us, our understanding isn't as strong. Our comprehension is not as strong. A lot of us aren't as informed. So it's there are a lot of other deficits that we carry that has to be addressed when you're talking about educational development. That's what my critical brother said. I started reading Nine Mark by Prison 2002. Those thin, easy to read books helped me. Yes, the easy to read books. There we go. That's what I'm talking about. Easy to read books. They are useful. Yes. And that's what it's about, you know. So I want us to understand, like, as we moving forward, we want to create those processes, you know, and we also got to get to the point, like my brother like black meaning black, brother. Correction officer for lockdown. Thousands of them books, that's a lot of money, man. I get it. That's the thing. But I'm quite sure, if you haven't read all those thousands, quite sure you read a significant amount, and because you've read a significant amount, you've been able to benefit from it. So now you house the information, and in due time, over time, you'll regain that. You'll rebuild that library. But yes, books do have spirit. It's like the books that I write. I write my books to put my spirit into the book. You know what I'm saying? It's like I'm not writing to entertain. I am writing to transfer, my spirit to the recipient. Principally black people. That's what I'm writing for. So when a person read my book, I want you to actually feel me. So yes, my book is housed with nothing but spirit, and I can feel that when I read specific books written by specific black people. If I'm reading Dr. Mama Marima, Nana Marima, I can feel the energy in the spirit. If I'm reading Baba Baruti, I can feel the energy in the spirit. Even in Dr. Amos Wilson, you can feel it, the intensity and the power. So the books do carry exactly what you just said. Is the Bible the greatest book ever written? And you know what? Since you came on here and you asked that question, because you want to, troll, I'm gonna let the people in the chat deal with that. I'm not even gonna address that question. So the chat, y'all see the question that this Jose Rodriguez asked? He says, the Bible the greatest book ever written. What y'all think? What my chat think? So you're not trolling in. Okay, so I'm going to assume you're asking a legitimate question. Yeah, I got rid of Jose, man. We ain't dealing with Jose. We ain't dealing with Jose at all. Back to the matter at hand. Building our people, engaging our people, developing processes that allow our people to develop, and being able to address everybody at every level. Those who have read, those who are clear, those who are on point, we too must continue to develop and work out. It's the same way like if you're working out, you lifting weights, you work out, you got to keep working out, you exercise, you keep exercising. If you eat healthy, you continue to eat healthy. You don't get to a certain point of eating healthy and then you stop. You should continue to eat healthy to remain in your life. So with those of us who feel like we're clear, we have to build those areas. They call them think tanks. We have to build those spaces where we can congregate and engage in the higher sciences of the knowledge that we're talking about. Because the knowledge, it goes deep, and we can get into the complex areas of the Black dilemma. I like to call it the Black dilemma, right? Because that's what it is. It's a dilemma. It's a socio-political, economic, cultural, and spiritual dilemma that we are confronted with. That we are confronted with that dilemma. So therefore, it's our sole responsibility to do what? To assess that dilemma, to examine that dilemma, and collect data from that dilemma, and develop processes that would allow us to do what? To resolve the dilemma, right? We cannot live with the dilemma. We cannot seek comfort within the dilemma. We must forever be mindful of the dilemma and for always be working towards what? Resolving the dilemma. Now, there are many passageways and many pathways that we can take in terms of what? Making some headway. But we know that whatever path we take, whatever passageway we take, we know that We should be doing that to get to the final end. And the final end should be about those of us who understand who we are. We should be trying to get to sovereignty, right? Now, there are many things that need to be done in the meantime. And there are many things that need to be done along that path to get to sovereignty. So like I said the last time, so sovereignty is down the street. But we got to do everything to get down the street because there are things in our way that's preventing us from getting down the street. So we either going to do one or two things. We're going to complain about all these things that's in our way, that's obstructing our passageway and our pathway, or we're going to sit back and assess all these things and figure out how to do what? To get rid of them. One thing at a time. And every time we get rid of one thing, whether we go through it, around it, underneath it, or over top of it, right? It puts us that much more closer to sovereignty, which is only down the street. It's only down the street, man. So let's not argue about how to get past that first brick. I'm saying, man, I want to jump over top of that joint. Don't get mad at me because I want to go over top of it. And you say, nah, Bob, I want to go over top of it, man. We can just go around it. Okay, look, meet me on the other side then. You go around it and let me go over top. Meet me on the other side of the brick and we can figure out how to deal with the other brick. We're not going to get stuck right here complaining about which way is best. Get around the brick. I'm going to go over top of it. My man and son going to go around the other side. My other brother going to go underneath of it. But we all going to pop up where? On the opposite side of that brick. For what? So we can figure out how to deal with the next brick. That's what this is about, black man and black woman. Your library going to always be with you. It's a part of who you are. It goes back to what you were initially saying about the importance of knowing our history. Yes, history is so important. That's exactly why prisons restrict books, because they understand the importance of books. They understand the importance of books. There was a time period in our history when we understood the importance of books too. We got to get back to that, but one book at a time. We can't push it on our people, man. We can't beat our people across the head. We can't make them feel bad for not reading. We got to do it very strategic, one book at a time, and we got to throw it out there. We got to be fishers. We got to find those of us, man, that are willing to read and learn and change their thinking. They out there, We just got to be willing to do the work. David Ruggles. David Ruggles. If you don't know who he is, look him up, because I'm going to talk more about David Ruggles when we get in the month of February. But I will introduce a little bit of him tonight. My man, I like David Ruggles. He was on some serious stuff to be a young guy, But one of the things he talked about when it came to the abolitionists, because he was a part of that, he used this phrase that he called practical abolitionism or radical abolitionism. Practical, right? His thing was, we got to consistently get on the ground and just do the work. Like, we cannot assume that all our people don't want to move forward. We cannot work from that premise. We can't make that our premise. We have to reconstruct the premise that informs us that the majority of our people do want to move forward. And by majority, like what he understood, is he focused on the people that was on the ground. He was in New York, focused on the ground. He knew that most of the abolitionists kind of was up in the elite. They seen themselves as being elites or stuff of that nature, and they focused on different things, you know what I'm saying? Lectures, speeches, and stuff like that. Whereas with David Ruggles, he was a part of that too. He done that, but he also knew that, hey, we got to get down here because the average common person really is okay with what we're trying to do. We just got to go make them aware of it. So he dealt with the practical abolitionism, right? And so I share that to say, like, that's what we have to do. We have to do that for those of us who are aware and we are studying and we are clear and we are sincere and genuine in our heart. We have to find a way to reach another person. That's it, right? Find a way to reach another person. That's all we got to do. We're not asking everybody who's saying you got to be this major leader of a major movement. No, like if all of us can reach another person, and help that person come into what we believe that we have that is accurate and correct as it pertains to us as a people. Let's bring one person into it. That's practical. Because I'm not telling you to go get 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7. I'm saying go get one. If that's not practical, I don't know what practicality is. Go get one. And when we can't get one, right? This is what I'm telling you. When we can't get one person, the issue and the problem is not the people. It's you. You may not want to acknowledge it, but it's you. It's no different than these failing schools. These failing schools make the student problematic to keep from what? Speaking the truth about their inability to educate Black children. So rather than they taking ownership for their failure, they make the student problematic. And I'm beginning to notice the same trend running through this thing we call the movement for those of us who say we have knowledge. We can't reach one person, and then we got the strongest critiques about what we are not doing as a people, but yet we can't reach one person. We can't get one person. You can't reach one person. No, it's not practical. We can't say we have knowledge and can't reach a person. Come on now. What good is your knowledge if your knowledge is not utilized in the capacity to transform the lives of other people? What good is it? Like, think about it. What good is your knowledge if your knowledge cannot be utilized in the capacity to impact and transform the life of another person? One person. That's all I'm saying. One person. That's what our knowledge is supposed to enable us to do, to reach one person. And by reaching that person, you impact that person in such a way with your knowledge that you subsequently transforms that person's life. If 10 people did that, right, the 10 becomes what? 20. If 10 people just did that, if 10 of us reach one person, we just got 20 people now. And then you work with that one person till that person is strong enough and put that person on the same mission. Now, the 20 are going to continue to try to do what? To reach one person. If we did that, if the 20 reached one person, now we got 40 people. However, if the first 10 don't even get anybody else, but the second 10 reach 10 people, that's still 30 people, right? And if each 10 that come in repeat the process, that's a system. If each 10 that come in repeat the process. So that's what it is. You know what I'm saying? Everybody know, listen, I'm going to reach one person, help this person understand, bring this person into the knowledge, and then give this person or suggest to this person that he or she do the same. And tell that person that he or she inform the person that he get to do the same. That's a system. That's a system. And this is how we have to move. We have to be very proactive. We have to be very solution-oriented. And we have to be very intentional. Very intentional. And once again, make sure you share this video, like the video. If you have not subscribed to the page, please subscribe to the page. You know, I just put our website in the chat. Check us out. See who we are. See what we're doing. Put the email in the chat. What's our email? So that's the email. If you want to reach out, send me a message. You can message me there. If you want to reach out and inquire about any of my books that I have out, currently I have 6 books out. You can hit me through that. And I have another book that's on its way that'll be coming out soon, hopefully this month, Scientific Pan-Africanism. And this particular book will clarify and elaborate exactly what Pan-Africanism is. It is a book that you want to have. It is a book that you want to read. It is a book that you do not want to just pass over. You do not want to assume that I don't need to read this book. I know what Pan-Africanism is. No, you do not. You have not read a book about Pan-Africanism from this perspective yet. It is not a history of Pan-Africanism because many books out there have already dealt with that. So I'm not writing a history, but I'm writing a very, very profound clarification and a very, very profound elaboration of what Pan-Africanism is. And I break it down in those different ways, so you can grasp it, you can get it, and you can develop a deeper understanding for yourself. Oh yeah, so you can speak on the National Race First Convention. That would be helpful. Yeah, appreciate that, my brother Ifa Bamala. I appreciate that. That's one of my young soldiers right there from down Tampa. One of our young warriors. That's he's heading up PLM Tampa. Our first chapter outside of Baltimore City. That's our field captain there. But yes, so he want me to speak quickly to the National Race First Convention. So the National Race First Convention is what is happening this year, the year 2025 in September. It's going to be held here in Baltimore City. I believe the dates are it's the last weekend in September. I don't want to mess the dates up and anybody misquote me, anything of that nature. But the fundamental purpose of the National Race First Convention is to get a select group of serious-minded Black men and Black women together that who are already standing on race first principles, whether they say Pan-Africanist, Afrocentricity, or Black nationalist, revolutionary, anybody that's serious already about doing this work, the convention is going to bring us together where we can draft some things up together. We can draft up a declaration of sentiments, and we can draft up a set of principles of operation to get on the same accord. Now we're not trying to organize everybody in terms of trying to build one gigantic organization. That's not what this is about. What we want to do with this convention is to get everybody together, those who are serious about doing the work, so we can begin to lay out. Yes, good job. My brother put the dates up here. So get everybody together so we can begin a process. We're not saying that's the end all be all, but to begin a process where we can begin to draft, an umbrella document that those of us who are doing the work from an organizational point of view, we can begin to do our work through the document, meaning that wherever you are at, whatever your positions are, we are moving in the same direction because we have agreed upon the same thing. Because right now, everybody don't necessarily know that the goal is African sovereignty because they're not as clear. But we need to know, like, this is what the goal is. This is what we're going to agree upon. And then those of us who want to agree upon that, then we're going to operate together. We're going to rock and roll together. We're going to move together. We're going to do things together. We're going to, forward this agenda. So the National Race First Convention, the first of its kind, is happening, this September 9/26, 2025 through 9/28, 2025. I would encourage all of you to be there, man. It's going to be historic in the sense that it's going to be remembered forever, because we're going to make some strides. We're going to do some wonderful things, and something you want to be a part of. So before we get out, we got 5 minutes left. As always, is there any lingering questions that you may have? Any comment that you want to make? Now is the time before we close out for tonight. And as always, I'm going to continuously encourage and urge us to bring one person back to the next session. Next Thursday, 9 p.m. Same channel, same time. Bring one person with you. So, share this with one person. Let's get one person. Let's get the content out there. That's what this is about. We have to move that way. We have to move That way we have to be serious about the work that we're doing. We have to be serious-minded about the work that we do. Very intentional about this work. We cannot do this work half-heartedly. This work has to be a driving force in your life. That's the only way you sustain yourself. It's when you commit to the work. And we don't have to look at and think about the commitment as something that's strenuous. It's not. There's a joy. That's a profound joy that I always have when I stand on any part of the front line, operating in any capacity in terms of doing the work, in terms of helping our people, whether that's organizing or whether that's organizing an event, a profound event, whether that's on Saturdays, at the Kimoyo Shule Africana, when I'm educating the young children. I'm elated when I'm doing that. Whether I'm working with adults, whether it's a Tuesday session when I'm talking to the men, a person can't say they ever saw me and my energy not the same, no matter what capacity you saw me in, no matter where you see me at. When you see me doing this work, my energy is the same. So it's not strenuous when you commit to it. When you know that the work is your life, it's not strenuous. It's what you're supposed to do. That's what this is about. And this is how we're supposed to be thinking. Get the job done, black man and black woman. And when you read them books, read with intentional. Don't just be reading because you want information. Remember, like I said earlier, acquisition is not the equivalent of development. Great bill, Baba. Thanks for always thinking big and introducing it in a fundamental way where people can digest and evolve as servant, soldiers, specialists for us. Appreciate that. Appreciate it as always. Yes, you and I, we got to schedule our next online talk. What do you think about that? Let me know what you think, my brother. We got to get our online talk going popping, rocking and popping. What you want to chat? What do you want to talk about online? You and I, again. Let me know. See what the people think about that. Remember, black man and black woman, acquisition is not the same as development. You want development. You don't want acquisition. You don't just want to acquire a bunch of information. You want to strive and work and be intentional about what you read, quality, not so much your quantity, but you want the quality of what you're reading, what you're digesting, so it can develop you. And you want it to be in a rigorous way, man. You don't want it ease. No, there's no development following ease. There's no development following ease, right? Development follows struggle, resistance, challenge, difficulty. Development comes out of that, man. Development is forged. So if you want your mind to be sharp in the movement, if you want to be clear about what's going on, you got to put that mind through something, right? Don't just be grabbing books. You read 10 pages and then you heard your favorite lecturer mention another book, and you put that book down and you go buy that book and you read that book and you 60 pages in that book. Then you heard another one of your favorite lecturers mention another book. You put that book down, you go get that book and you read that book. You know that stuff that people be doing. No, I'm telling you that is not the way. That is not the way. Get through what you set out to get through. You complete it. Now, any of you that's on Facebook, I'm quite sure you always hear Elder Taka Kilimanjaro always instructing us. Start something and finish it. He's always instructing us to do that. And I stand by that. You pick it up, you start reading it, you finish it, and then you summarize it, and then you move on. Now, if you're one of those bright, precocious people, and you can read 3 and 4 books at one time, I'm not that precocious. I can't read 4 books at one time. All right? But if you are, you know what I'm saying, then cool. But the majority of us are not such an individual. So take your time. Don't be so fast. Move for development. I challenge you like this. We're in the month of January. Right? So you got we're in the month of January. You still got January, you got all these other months. If you can complete one book, solid book per month, and summarize that each book, I can guarantee you. And if you do it systematically, make sure you're building on each book where each book reinforces the other book. Not just any and all these books, right? I can guarantee you, because I know that I've done it and I still do it. When you get back to January 2026, you won't even recognize how you think. It'll be totally different. And that's just 1 year. And I'm just saying one book a month, which is very easable and something that's very easily to do. But if you start now in January and you say, I'm going to complete this book, I'm going to summarize this book, right? Take all the notes out the book, all the key pieces, summarize that book, you keep the summary. Then go to your next book in February. Complete it in February, do the same thing. Get to March, the same thing. Make the books stack on each other. Make sure the books follow one another. When you get back to January 2026, you won't even recognize how you think. If you take and move through a process and not just be so slippery, jumping all around, So that's what I want to leave you with. Hopefully someone will, take me up on that. If not, it's all good. It's my duty to bring the information to you. As always, welcome to, it took me 5 years in the Bing to learn to study and read. 20 years later, and still learning new study and research habits. I appreciate that, my brother. I love the honesty and the vulnerability, because it does take a little time to learn the study process. But yes, when you get it though, it makes it easier to learn all those other things that you learn as you're going along the way. As always, Black family, it's a pleasure and a beauty to be with you. We're here at the School of Urban Philosophy. We stand on what we say. We always straight up, straightforward, and straight to the point. See you next week for another episode here at the School of Urban Philosophy. Be Prodier and Race First.